"You're not coming. Dad wants just family." That message shattered me, delivered as casually as a weather update right as I laid the silverware for Thanksgiving dinner. The fork clinked against the ceramic plate, and for a long moment I just stared at the screen. A blue bubble. One sentence. No punctuation, no apology, no warmth. I blinked, trying to make the words change, trying to find a hidden meaning in their simplicity. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe autocorrect failed. Maybe no. This wasn't a mistake. It was a clean slice, deliberate and surgical. A line drawn through me as if I were a smudge on their perfect family portrait. Outside, the Portland rain tapped nervously against the window as if it sensed the shift inside. The scent of sage and rosemary clung to the air. My table was set, linen napkins folded just right, the roast resting in the oven, cranberries chilling in a cut glass bowl. I had ordered a turkey dinner for 6. 6. I'd envisioned Mom's laugh bouncing off my apartment walls, Dad's silence stretching between football replays, Madison chewing absent-mindedly, texting under the table. Instead, I stood alone, holding a phone I suddenly wanted to smash. A storm started inside me, far colder than the drizzle seeping through the city. But on the surface, I moved quietly, robotically. I finished placing the last spoon. I took off my apron. I walked to the couch and sat down, back straight, hands in my lap. Every movement was measured, controlled. Control was survival. Control was how I'd made it this far. When I was 15 and Mom cried over bounced checks, I learned to manage her online banking. At 23, I deferred grad school to care for Dad after his surgery. At 27, I signed the co-loan to save their mortgage even though I lived 2 cities away. And last year, I sold my Seattle condo, my one piece of independence, to help them get back on their feet. The house they live in now, I wired that down payment. Evelyn signed the papers, but it was my account that bled. She used to call me her rock, her anchor. "You keep us steady, Lauren." Those words felt like medals once. Now I hear them like lines from a dusty play. Rehearsed. Mechanical. A notification buzzed. Madison. "I'm sorry. You know how they are." Madison. Still caught in the undertow, still afraid to stand fully on her own. She meant well, I knew that. But her apologies were paper-thin shields flapping uselessly in the wind. I didn't reply. I stared at the thread with Mom. Just 2 messages back and forth this morning. "Me, dinner's almost ready. Can't wait to see you guys." Then her, "You're not coming. Dad wants just family. Just family." I whispered those words out loud slowly, like I was tasting poison. What the hell had I been all these years? I stood again, walked to the kitchen, turned off the oven. Silence settled like a shroud. I wasn't hungry. Not for food, not for comfort. I opened a bottle of red I had bought just for Mom. Her favorite Oregon Pinot. I poured a glass, stared at the deep swirl, and then set it down untouched. Then I opened my laptop. The desktop was neat. Of course it was. But at the bottom right corner was a folder I hadn't touched in months. I had created it once in a flash of fury, only to forget about it, push it away like everything else I wasn't supposed to feel. Project Consequences. I double-clicked. Inside, screenshots of Venmo payments, notarized copies of financial transfers, insurance documents with my name and her signature. Receipts. I added a new file. Just a Word doc, nothing fancy. Title case begins Thanksgiving 2023. My fingers hovered over the keys for a moment. Then methodically, I began to type. Not just facts, feelings, memories, her tone, his silence. The way they built a castle on my back and called it a gift. I wrote until the words blurred, until the tears came, but silently, like everything else in my life. Then I stopped. I minimized the window. I stared at my reflection in the dark screen. Eyes that had seen too much. A mouth that had smiled too politely. A spine that had bent too often. "They don't know it yet," I whispered, voice even. but this is the last time they cut me out. Every single view means a meal for someone in need. Just by watching this video, you're giving warmth, hope, and a full plate to those less fortunate. So watch now, share now, subscribe to the channel, and let's spread love together. People say blood is thicker than water. They never talk about how quickly blood turns to debt. The phrase echoed in my mind as I sat cross-legged on the living room floor, the glow of my laptop painting the walls in cold blue light. Rain streaked down the window like teardrops I refused to shed. It was nearly midnight. A half-empty mug of black coffee sat next to a growing pile of printed receipts and highlighter-streaked statements. This wasn't grief anymore, it was evidence gathering. My hands trembled not from sadness but from something sharper, something more precise. I was slicing open the narrative I'd believed my entire life. And with every document, every contradictory transaction, I found a new incision. Clean, surgical, intentional. I started with the car. Dad had called it an emergency investment. Some guy from his golf league had a used car lot on the brink of expansion. He just needed quick capital. 10 grand now, Dad said, and we'll be partners by spring. That was January 2022. I had wired the money within 48 hours. Pulling up the transaction now, the amount glared back at me, $10,000, transferred to G. Carter. Memo vehicle opportunity. Below it, a receipt from February, Mom tagging herself at a Napa Valley bed and breakfast. Caption: wine with my forever love. No mention of car lots, no used vehicles, just sunsets and Syrah. I moved on. The surgery, March 2023. I'd been at work when Mom called sobbing. Something about a specialist, a cancellation list, and insurance denial. They said if I don't get this removed soon, it could metastasize, she whispered. We're scared, Lauren. I hadn't even hesitated. I remembered rushing out of my meeting, logging into my savings account on my phone, transferring $15,000 into her name. She'd hugged me a week later, held my face in her hands, said I had saved her life. There were real tears, real panic, or so I'd thought. Tonight, I dug up the statement, $15,000, wire to E. Carter, memo medical urgent. Then I found her Instagram post from that same month, 3 days after the transfer. A luxury kitchen reveal. Quartz counters, touch-free faucets, new cabinetry. Caption: finally my dream kitchen. Grateful, Haktad, blessed, I stared at the screen, nausea crawling up my throat. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe the surgery was real and the kitchen was a gift to herself after surviving a scare. But I knew better. And then I found Sophie. Beneath a pile of archived emails buried between newsletters and appointment reminders was a chain of messages between me and my college roommate. We hadn't spoken in years, but I remembered the exact night I reached out to her. It was the December Dad called in a panic because the furnace exploded and they had no heat. I had wired $7,800 the next morning. Sophie had written back the same evening gently. Lauren, I know it's hard to hear, but are you sure they're not using you? I never replied. I had told myself Sophie didn't understand, that she was jealous, maybe bitter. Now I saw her words differently. They were a warning flare I'd ignored. I hit print on the entire email thread. The machine hummed steadily, spitting out page after page of financial lifelines that had always run one way out of me. I started a folder, case files, personal. Inside it, I created subfolders by year. Every receipt, bank transfer confirmation email went into its respective slot. I used color-coded tabs: red for medical, blue for housing, yellow for emergencies, a rainbow of lies. The more I printed, the more precise I became. There was power in order, power in naming things. Like this: gaslighting, February 2023, asset transfer, July 2022, verbal manipulation, April 2021. And then I found the crack in their timeline. One receipt in particular caught my attention: a property tax statement for the house in Beaverton, dated September 10th, 2023. It listed the mortgage balance, the escrow, the new appraisal value after the kitchen remodel. But according to Mom, they had almost lost the house in November, and I had been their last hope. I scrolled further through her emails. My eyes stopped at one unread notification. Subject refinance confirmed, October 4th. From Cascade Lending Services, I clicked. The body was short professional. Confirmed refinancing at a new fixed rate. Closing date October 4th, 2023. Disbursed amount $220,000. That's 2 months before she cried on the phone. 2 months before the Thanksgiving ask. It wasn't spontaneous. It was planned. They had already saved the house. They just wanted my money. The air left my lungs in one sharp burst. I dropped my head into my hands and let out a sound I couldn't define. Laughter. A sob. Maybe both. It didn't matter. I was done believing in good intentions. I was done protecting them from the truth. The rain outside had turned steady, rhythmic, like a metronome keeping time with my heartbeat. And inside me, something had shifted again. The grief was thinning, hardening into resolve. Then I saw the subject line one more time: refinance confirmed, October 4th. I opened the PDF and highlighted the date. This was my proof. This was my ignition. And I hadn't even gotten to the tax records yet. The only thing worse than being used is realizing your own sister saw it all and said nothing. Madison's face flickered onto my screen, blurry at first, then sharpening under the fluorescent light of her dorm room. Behind her, I recognized the chaos of a college night, half-packed laundry, open textbooks, and the faint hum of life continuing unbothered. She looked tired, nervous, like someone dialing into court, not calling her older sister. "Hey," she whispered, pulling the hoodie tighter around her neck. "I didn't think you'd actually call." "I shouldn't have waited this long," I replied. My voice was even clipped. "You said, you know how they are." "I want to know what you meant." She hesitated, bit her lip. The same nervous tick she had when we were kids, and she got caught sneaking extra dessert. Only this wasn't about cookies or cartoons. "I wasn't trying to stir anything up," she said carefully. I didn't know what to say." "You were always so committed." "To them?" I asked. "To saving them," she replied. There was a silence, tight and heavy. I broke it. "Did you know?" My fingers tapped the side of my coffee mug, slow and steady. "About the house. About the kitchen? The money they said was for surgery?" Madison looked away from the camera. Her jaw twitched. "Lauren, don't sugarcoat it. Just tell me." She exhaled hard, almost like it hurt to say. "Yes." The word hit me like ice water down the spine. Yes, I knew about the kitchen. She told me it was a surprise for Dad. Said she was finally getting the home she deserved after all these years. I didn't even think twice until you mentioned helping with medical bills. I remember wondering if you knew." I closed my eyes, swallowing the burn behind them. "And the graduation?" Madison nodded slowly. "They skipped it on purpose. That knocked the air out of me." I remembered that day vividly. Sitting alone in a hotel room, clutching my cap, checking my phone every 5 minutes. Mom had texted that morning. "We're stuck, baby. Something with the furnace. You know how these things go. We're proud of you, though." I had believed her. Even defended her when Sophie raised an eyebrow. "I thought if you knew you'd be furious," Madison continued. But then part of me thought, maybe you did know, and just didn't want to face it. I stared at the screen. "So you said nothing?" "I was 20, she said, her voice cracking. "They still pay my rent." I didn't know how to be anything but quiet. "And now," she blinked. "Now I'm tired of lying for them." There was a pause. Longer this time. "Do you want to know how deep this goes?" Madison asked quietly. I nodded once. She turned, rifled through her drawer, then came back with her phone in hand. "I forwarded you something just now. It's a PDF refinance records. I found it last month while helping Mom with her printer. Didn't mean to. But the dates looked off." I opened my inbox. Subject refinance records. Found these from Madison Carter. I clicked the attachment. The document opened in a separate window. It was exactly what I feared. Filed October 4th. Mortgage refinanced. Full payout received. Disbursement complete. Weeks before Evelyn cried to me over the phone. Weeks before the fabricated panic. My stomach turned. She told you they were about to lose the house, Madison said. But by then it was already secure. She just wanted more. For furniture, I think. I couldn't speak. My throat had closed around the enormity of it. They used me like a bank, I said, finally more to myself than to her, but one they didn't even respect enough to keep in the loop. Madison was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "There's more." My pulse kicked. "What else are you not telling me?" She hesitated. I saw the flicker of panic in her eyes, the instinct to retreat. "There's a life insurance policy," she said almost inaudibly. "I didn't know if I should tell you." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was loaded. A premonition. A new door creaking open into something darker. And for the first time, I felt it. This wasn't just about money anymore. Turns out I didn't give them the house. They planned to take it on paper with my forged consent. The morning was gray and bitterly cold, the kind of chill that settled deep in your bones no matter how many cups of coffee you drank. My living room floor was a battlefield of folders, legal printouts, and highlighters bleeding color across crisp, white pages. The house smelled like stale anxiety and printer ink. I hadn't slept. I'd stayed up combing through every shred of paperwork related to the Beaverton property. Mortgage documents, escrow statements, emails I barely remembered sending. A deep part of me hoped I'd misread something, that this nightmare was just paranoia tipping into obsession. But then I opened a manila envelope I had filed away months ago, back when trust still overruled caution. Inside, a copy of a deed labeled Gift Transfer Authorization. At the top, in bold, my full name, Lauren Avery Carter. Below it, consenting party to gift transfer of property, 3321 Brookside Lane. I stared at the words like they were a foreign language. The document was dated October 17th, 2 weeks after the refinance, 2 weeks before Evelyn cried to me about losing the house. At the bottom were 3 signatures: Gregory L. Carter, Evelyn M. Carter, Lauren A. Carter. I didn't remember signing anything. Not then. Not ever. The signature looked like mine, the loop of the L, the sharp hook on the R, but something was off. It was too tidy, too careful, like someone had practiced it. My fingers were trembling as I reached for my phone. Diane Russell was a name I hadn't spoken aloud in years. She was the lawyer I almost hired during my condo sale, back when I thought I might need help managing my growing assets. I never followed through. I thought I could handle it myself. Thought my family had my back. I found her number in an old email and pressed call. She picked up on the 3rd ring. Diane Russell. "Hi, it's Lauren Carter. We spoke a couple years ago briefly about property in Seattle." She paused. "Yes, I remember. What can I help you with?" I took a deep breath and launched into the story. I told her about the refinance, the emails, the PDF Madison sent, and then the document. The one with the signature that wasn't mine. She asked for photos. I sent them. There was a long silence on her end. "Then, Lauren, this is serious. This isn't just unethical. If that deed is filed with a complicit notary, your parents could legally transfer the house into their names next week." My chest tightened. "But I paid for it. I wired the down payment. I've been paying taxes. The utilities are still in my name." She was calm but firm. "That won't matter if the document is accepted as valid. And if they used your name and forged your signature, they've likely lined up the rest. Notaries, witnesses, it's not hard to fabricate those if you know the right people." I couldn't breathe. "Can we stop it?" "Yes. But we have to act fast." "What do I do?" First, revoke any power of attorney you may have signed in the past, even if it's years old. Next, freeze all pending asset transfers. I'll help you draft a legal hold on the property title. We'll issue a cease and desist to the county clerk's office, and Lauren Ye start documenting everything, every penny, every message. This isn't just fraud, it's strategic identity theft. I nodded even though she couldn't see me. Already done. I have a timeline, a folder, receipts. Good. Then you're ahead of the curve. I hung up and immediately began typing. I printed a revocation of POA, called my bank, called the title company, filed holds, password protected every account tied to my name. I called Madison and told her what was happening. Her voice was barely above a whisper. They forged your name? Looks like it. They're insane. No, they're methodical. I stared again at the signature on the deed. A perfect imitation of me, my loops, my strokes, my damn personality distilled into ink. I whispered to no one. This isn't just theft. This is identity erasure. They weren't just taking my money. They were rewriting the narrative so that I never owned anything, never contributed, never existed in the legacy of that home. And they were so close to getting away with it. My phone buzzed again. It was Diane. One line. Do you know about the life insurance policy they filed last month? My blood froze. Because no, I didn't. Not yet. When a healthy parent takes out a massive life insurance policy with you as the sole beneficiary, it's not love, it's leverage. I sat curled up on the couch laptop balanced on my knees, a thin throw blanket wrapped around my shoulders like armor. Outside, the rain had turned to snowflakes drifting silently past the window like ash. My breath fogged the glass, blurring the world beyond it. Inside, the air buzzed with a colder truth. They didn't just want my money. They wanted my future, too. The PDF Madison sent glowed on my screen. Stark and clinical policy holder, Evelyn M. Carter insured. Evelyn M. Carter. Beneficiary, Lauren A. Carter amount $200,000 filed. September 12, 2023. Are you sure this is real? I'd asked Madison when she first mentioned it. Positive, she said over text. Mom made me print it. Said it was for safekeeping. I took a photo. And now here it was. Notarized. Filed. Valid. Evelyn was in good health. No diagnosed conditions. No medical red flags. She biked every Saturday, kept a rigid diet, lectured Madison on antioxidants. There was no logical reason to take out a policy this size unless you were planning to weaponize it. I clicked into a call with Diane. She answered on the first ring. You saw it? I asked. I did, she said grimly, and I'll be honest, this changes everything. My heart pounded in my ears. How, if something were to happen to them, an accident, an unexplained event, Lauren, you'd be the prime suspect, especially considering the pending title dispute, the frozen accounts, the revocation of power of attorney. It's a narrative tailor-made for you to be painted as greedy, resentful, dangerous. I pressed my knuckles to my mouth, trying not to scream. They're setting me up. I'm not saying that yet, Diane replied. But I'm also not saying it. We need to think defensively now, not just civil court criminal implications. I closed the call and sat in silence. Snow tapped softly against the windows like fingers drumming a warning. My eyes burned from too many screens and too little sleep. And then I remembered something. A voicemail. From Evelyn. A few weeks ago. I had ignored it at the time, chalked it up to her usual emotional manipulation. I opened my voicemail app and found it. You've always been our safety net, sweetheart. If something happened to us, you'd be fine. Better than fine. I played it again. Slower this time. Listening to her phrasing, her cadence. The way she dragged out the last sentence. Was it affection or foreshadowing? My chest went tight. This wasn't just erasure anymore. This was a frame job in progress. I opened a blank email and stared at the blinking cursor. Then I began to type. Subject: I need proof. They planned this. To Noah Fields, body. Mr. Fields, I was referred to you through a colleague. I'm in need of private investigative services. This involves potential financial fraud, identity misuse, and the growing suspicion that I am being positioned very carefully as the scapegoat in a premeditated plan involving life insurance and forged property documents. Attached is everything I have so far: financial transactions, forged deed, insurance policy, voicemail recording, timeline of manipulation. I need evidence. I need to know what they've said, signed, and set in motion behind my back. I need someone who can find what I can't. This isn't paranoia. It's a chess game. And I didn't even know I was on the board until they tried to remove me from it. Please respond quickly. Lauren Carter. I attached the files, double-checked the encryption, then I hovered over the button. Send. It clicked. The email vanished into cyberspace. I sat back, the tremble in my hands finally stilling. They built a trap, I whispered into the dim room. But I'll be the one who walks them into it. Noah Fields didn't wear a trench coat or carry a gun, but the moment he stepped into my apartment, I knew he hunted truths. Like predators hunt prey. He arrived just past noon while freezing rain lashed sideways against the windows. I offered coffee. He declined. He stood in the doorway long enough to scan the layout of my apartment. Its tidy chaos, the folders stacked on the dining table, the laptop left open mid-search. A man who took in the room the way others read confessionals. He wore a wool pea-coat, black gloves, and a calm expression that felt more like a diagnosis than a mood. You've been busy, he said, nodding toward the heap of labeled folders. Project Consequences sat front and center, my growing archive of betrayal. I nodded. It's all there. Bank transfers, scanned deeds, the insurance policy, even a voicemail. He stepped out of his coat and pulled a slim laptop from his bag. Let's see what you've got. For the next hour, we sat side by side. I walked him through the timeline, starting from the refinance, then the forged signature, the gift transfer, and finally, the insurance bombshell. He clicked, zoomed, took notes in a notebook so tidy it bordered on obsessive. This is thorough, he said after scrolling through the folder's contents. Impressive, actually. But I braced myself. You've only traced the documents you were meant to see. I blinked. What does that mean? He turned his laptop toward me, pulling up a browser with several tabs already queued. It means we need to go deeper: wire records, shell accounts, and any unaccounted movement of funds. And to do that, we don't just look at what they gave you, we look at what they hid. He pulled up a timeline spreadsheet. On it, my records of transfers, $10,000 here, $15,000 there, were cross-referenced with dates from Evelyn's and Gregory's social media posts, public property filings, even Yelp reviews from restaurants they dined at. They were eating Wagyu at Morton's 3 days after they told you the furnace broke, he pointed out. I clenched my fists. I thought I was helping them survive winter. They were celebrating renovations. A sickening wave of clarity settled in. As we worked, my phone buzzed. Madison. Text. You won't believe what I found in Mom's drawer. I stared at the message, heart thudding. Before I could respond, Noah looked up. Everything okay? Maybe. I don't know yet. I turned the screen toward him. He read it, his expression unreadable. We'll circle back to that. Let's lock down what we can verify first. The afternoon faded into early evening. Diane called to report the title transfer had been paused, thanks to the legal freeze she pushed through the county recorder's office. For now, she said. But don't relax. I didn't plan to. Around 6, Noah sat back and pulled up an expense statement he'd retrieved from Evelyn's public financial filings. Here, he said, pointing. Rental payment. Paid through a business name I traced to your mother. I squinted. What is it, a storage unit? Leased under a shell name. Is it still active? He nodded. Paid last week. My breath caught. You think they're hiding something there? I don't think, he said. I know. We sat in silence for a beat, tension stretching like piano wire. What do you think they're hiding? I asked. He didn't look at me when he answered, just closed his laptop with a quiet, deliberate snap. The one thing they never wanted you to see, he said. Their real intentions. I'd been left out of every family decision. But they'd left the key to their lies in a 95-month storage locker under Mom's maiden name. The facility looked like every other industrial stretch in suburban Portland, rows of beige metal doors, the sharp smell of concrete dust and faint oil, and the chill of a building that was more warehouse than safe house. A fluorescent light flickered above as Noah and I stood at the front desk, waiting for the manager to process the access code Diane had helped us legally acquire. This one's been rented a long time, the manager mumbled, clicking through his screen. Since 2021. Auto-paid. Never had anyone stop by that I can remember. I signed where Diane told me to, using legal authority granted under asset protection. Noah remained silent, hands in the pockets of his navy coat, but his eyes never stopped scanning. Unit B27, second row, middle slot. The lock clicked with a groan, and cold air rushed out, dusty, stale, like secrets sealed in cardboard and plastic. We pulled the rolling door upward. Stacked neatly inside were 6 boxes. Nothing dramatic. No briefcases full of cash. No red string conspiracy wall. But as Noah lifted the first box and cracked it open, I realized just how deliberate the quiet could be. Receipts. Dozens of them. Labeled by year, clipped by category. Medical investment, Lauren reimbursed, Lauren no paper trail. Some were my handwriting. Most were forged. Perfect enough to fool someone who wasn't me. The second box held photocopies of gift letters, those financial statements banks ask for to confirm that transferred money isn't a loan. Everyone was supposedly from Lauren to Evelyn and Gregory Carter. My name scribbled with a signature I never signed. They forged everyone. I asked, my throat dry. Looks like it. Noah replied, rifling through them. And these were likely submitted during the refinance process. This is more than unethical. It's organized. The third box was the worst. A folder labeled Plan B, if Lauren refuses. I stared at it. The label was scrawled in Evelyn's handwriting, unmistakable, firm, and elegant. I opened the folder. Inside, a printed life insurance quote, $250,000. In the margin next to the coverage estimate, someone had written in pen, if denied, downgrade to $200K. Keep Lauren as beneficiary makes narrative easier. Next to it, an unsigned letter. To whom it may concern, it began. Lauren has always struggled with emotional stability. I stopped reading. They were writing the ending before I even knew I was in a story. Noah, I whispered, what is this? He said nothing, just reached into the fourth box and pulled out a small black USB. Let's check this. We returned to the car. Noah plugged it into his laptop. An audio file blinked on the screen. Final draft, sept dom M4A. He clicked play. First static, then her voice. Evelyn. I'm just saying, if she asks questions, we tell her it was all for the house. She'll believe that. She wants to believe that. Gregory's voice. And if she doesn't, she won't push. She never has. She still thinks we love her the same. There was a silence on the tape, then the sound of a glass being set down. Gregory again. And the policy. We time it right. That's all. My entire body turned cold. The audio clicked off. Noah stared at the screen a moment longer, then closed the laptop and turned to me. This is intent, he said, his voice low, steady. You're not crazy. They planned everything. And just like that, the fog of guilt I'd been walking through began to lift. Not all of it, but enough to let something else in. Rage. Some betrayals scream in your face. Others click quietly like a changed password or revoked access. It was just after sunrise when I began the digital lockdown. My laptop bathed the room in cold blue light while snow powdered the city outside like a silent audience. A fresh sheet of ice coated the windowsill as I typed the first of many new password strings of randomized chaos that even I had to write down twice. Bank logins, investment platforms, cloud storage, two-factor authentication activated, biometric security re-enabled. Every trace of my prior access sharing scrubbed away. No more shared folders. No more just-in-case logins for Evelyn to handle bills if something happened. Nothing left to exploit. Each action clicked softly, but the meaning behind every change was seismic. By 9:40 a.m., I was sitting across from Diane Russell at her downtown office, the kind of place where legal warnings are drafted as calmly as grocery lists. The heater groaned softly behind her desk while she reviewed the cease and desist filing I'd prepped the night before. This covers all existing and future title claims, she confirmed, tapping the signature line. If they try to move again on the house, it becomes criminal, not civil. I signed without hesitation. They'll fight it, Diane added. Let them, I said. I've stopped fighting fair. By noon, the snow had thickened. I trudged to my bank's main branch, walked in with printed documents, and revoked every prior authorization on joint accounts' frozen asset movement, and closed out a dormant credit card Evelyn had co-signed in 2017 for emergencies. I thought of all the dinners she paid for with that card while I assumed she was broke. Back at home, I shut off my phone for the first time all day. When I turned it back on, I had 4 missed calls from a number ending in 6632. Gregory. Another attempt buzzed in while I watched. I didn't answer. Seconds later, a new call came in, unknown number. I let it ring out. The voicemail alert followed. I opened it, bracing for his voice. It was Evelyn. You don't understand what you're doing, Lauren. We're family. We don't air dirty laundry. You're hurting us for what money, her voice cracked expertly as always. A pause just long enough for me to imagine regret. And then, this won't end well for you. I deleted the voicemail without finishing it. Then I blocked both numbers. That night, a single email appeared in my inbox. Subject: You've made a mistake. No body, no signature, just silence where shame should have been. I stared at it for a full minute. Then I clicked reply. Attached 3 PDFs, the transcript of the USB audio, the scanned life insurance policy, a screenshot of Evelyn's quote, "She still thinks we love her the same." Subject: correction, I'm making history. I hit send. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel hollow after pressing the button. I felt calibrated, aligned. At 10:27 p.m., Noah texted. Noah. Ready to pull the trigger on phase 2. I didn't hesitate. I already did. When you block a manipulator, they don't walk away. They escalate. It started subtly. A Facebook post from Evelyn buried beneath a sepia-toned photo of our family from 10 years ago. Me smiling between them before time etched anything real into the corners of our eyes. Please keep Lauren in your prayers, she wrote. We love her dearly and hope she finds peace during this difficult time. Mental health is no joke. 23 comments, mostly prayer hands and concerned emojis. One from Aunt Melody. She was always such a bright child. Let us know if there's anything we can do. I didn't reply. I didn't flinch. But I took a screenshot. An hour later, Madison texted. Madison. They're working the relatives. It's getting ugly. Attached were messages from Gregory to our second cousin Ben. She's threatening us. She's obsessed with the house. It's not about family anymore. It's about control. Another screenshot from Evelyn to a neighbor. She's always been fragile. After everything we did for her, this is how she repays us. I opened Instagram and saw a post tagged with my name. Some people forget who raised them. A blurry image of an empty dining table. Another cousin. One I hadn't seen in years. By noon, 4 mutual friends had unfollowed me. By evening, two former coworkers sent me vague check-ins, all ending with just making sure you're okay. The smear campaign had begun. At 8:42 p.m., I received a blocked call. Against my better judgment, I answered. Lauren. Gregory's voice gravel in a blender. I don't know what you think you're doing, but it needs to stop. I'm doing what you taught me, I said. Paying my debts. You're going to destroy this family. No, I replied. You did that the moment you forged my name. He hung up. I stared at the quiet hum of my phone for a long time before it buzzed again, this time from Madison. Madison. You need to see this. It was a screenshot of a message Evelyn had sent someone she thought Madison didn't know. Evelyn. If she goes public, we burn her. She's got no idea who she's messing with. I read it twice. Then again. It wasn't fear that spread through my chest, it was clarity. This was no longer subtle. This was war. The next morning, I sat across from Diane and Noah in Diane's office. Snow thickened outside, blanketing the city like false peace. Diane looked pale, composed. Noah had that same calm edge he always wore, like he'd already seen every possible ending and was just waiting for the one we chose. They're building a narrative, Diane said. That you're unstable. That you're attacking them. They're dragging my name through the mud, I said. Through the family. Through the community. Through my own blood. Noah leaned forward. We don't fight fire with silence. We fight it with truth. Ready? I took a breath. My voice didn't tremble. Yes. Diane pulled out a yellow folder, flipped it open to a statement of facts, time-stamped emails, PDFs, notarized recordings. She looked up. We dropped the first document in the morning. If they wanted to make me look unstable, they should have prayed I stayed quiet. New Year's Eve arrived with a low, freezing fog that wrapped around Portland like a warning. The city exhaled in celebration. I inhaled resolve. While fireworks were being stacked in driveways and champagne chilled on kitchen counters, I sat in Diane's office staring down the war I hadn't started, but damn sure intended to finish. The document folder was already prepped. Noah had labeled it Exhibit Set A, because of course he had. Every file was time-stamped, cross-referenced, and certified. Diane clicked through one by one, confirming what we already knew. Audio file Evelyn and Gregory discussing timing it right. PDF the life insurance policy with my name handwritten as beneficiary. Notarized affidavit signature samples proving forgery. Bank transfer logs. Social media screenshots. The USB transcript. Each line felt like a brick in the foundation of my fury. Diane uploaded the evidence to a secure server, password-protected, geotagged, legally watermarked. Noah triple-checked encryption protocols. I just kept breathing. Then came the part that wasn't Diane's or Noah's. It was mine. I opened my laptop and logged into a blog I hadn't touched in 6 years. Back when I still believed writing was therapy, not survival. I typed out the title slowly, When Parents Become Predators. The words that followed weren't angry. They weren't even sad. They were surgical. A methodical walk through betrayal, financial, emotional, legal. I wrote about giving up my apartment to help save my parents' house, only to learn the refinance had happened 2 months earlier. I detailed the insurance policy filed in my name, the fake gift letter, the forged documents. I didn't name names directly, but anyone who mattered would know. By the time I clicked publish, my hands were shaking, but not from fear. It was the aftershock of choosing myself. The post didn't explode. It ignited. 10 shares in the first hour. Then 50. Then over 100. Strangers commented, "This happened to me too," sending strength. My mother did the same, following for updates. You're not alone. By sunset, a local trauma podcast had sent a message. Would you be open to an interview? This story matters. That was when Evelyn finally broke silence. She sent an email at 6:27 p.m. with the subject line, "Take it down." Evelyn Carter. You've made your point. You've embarrassed yourself. You'll regret this. The world sees what you really are now. Take it down before it gets worse. I didn't reply, but I flagged it, forwarded it to Diane. An hour later, Gregory made his move. A cease and desist arrived via email claiming defamation, emotional injury, and unlawful publication of private family matters. Diane smiled as she read it. Cute, she muttered before attaching our full counterclaim and replying with a single sentence. We are prepared to defend the truth under oath. Outside, I could hear the first round of fireworks echoing from rooftops. Somewhere in the city, people were screaming in joy, kissing under lights, clinking glasses. Here, in this quiet office filled with litigation and loyalty, I was sharpening the blade of my narrative. Noah leaned back in his chair, watching the blog's analytics refresh. They wanted a battle, he said. Now they have a war, and it's public. That's when the door buzzed. Diane stepped out briefly, then returned with a large envelope in her hand. Subpoena, she said, handing it to me without ceremony. Gregory Carter is suing you for defamation. They wanted me silent. Instead, I showed up armed with truth and a witness list. The courthouse didn't feel dramatic. No marble floors, no echoing gavel strikes. Just beige walls, bad lighting, and the scent of damp wool from too many wet coats. Still, the courtroom in Multnomah County held more weight than any building I'd ever stood in. This wasn't just a legal proceeding. It was a reckoning. January rain ticked steadily against the windows like a metronome set to suspense. Gregory sat at the opposite table, stiff in a charcoal blazer that still bore the tag crease from whatever mid-range department store Evelyn had approved. He wouldn't look at me. Evelyn sat beside him, her arms crossed, a thin scarf tied too tightly around her neck. That wasn't for warmth, it was for control. Judge Avery Marsh entered quietly, a man in his 60s with silver eyebrows and an expression carved from decades of watching people lie. He nodded to both sides and gestured for the plaintiff's attorney to begin. Gregory's lawyer, a man named Walter Kinley with a comb-over and two shiny shoes, stood up and delivered his opening with all the false dignity of a used car pitch. Your Honor, my clients have been deeply harmed by Ms. Carter's reckless and defamatory statements. She has accused them publicly of fraud, emotional abuse, and attempted financial exploitation, all without verifiable proof. These accusations have damaged their standing in the community and caused emotional trauma. I didn't flinch. Diane didn't blink. He went on. Called my audio files selectively edited, questioned the authenticity of the documents, framed me as a disgruntled daughter seeking revenge. When he finished, Diane rose like calm water rising to drown a fire. Your Honor, she said, her voice like velvet over steel. What my client has shared is not fiction. It is a verifiable timeline of abuse, manipulation, and legal deception. We submit evidence today that includes audio metadata, signature comparisons, and certified document trails, all of which demonstrate not only motive, but method. She walked the court through the timeline, the refinance confirmed in October, the emergency request sent to me in December, the life insurance policy dated November with a forged signature. Then the audio. The courtroom fell quiet as Evelyn's voice filled the space, cold, deliberate, undeniable. She'll never question it. She still thinks we love her the same. Evelyn gasped. Not a dramatic movie gasp. Real, instinctual, like a wild animal caught in its own trap. Gregory's face went red. Judge Marsh leaned forward. Ms. Carter, he said, addressing me. Do you confirm that this is your mother's voice? I stood. Yes, Your Honor. You allege that these documents were filed without your knowledge or consent. I don't allege it, I said evenly. I prove it. The judge nodded slowly and turned back to the plaintiff's table. To be clear, he said to Gregory's lawyer, your clients are alleging defamation, and yet I see no refutation of the evidence, only that it makes them uncomfortable. Walter fumbled. Your Honor, discomfort is not a basis for legal action. the judge interrupted. He turned to Gregory directly. False allegations of defamation are still perjury, Mr. Carter. Be very careful. Gregory opened his mouth then closed it again. Diane leaned toward me, whispering without moving her lips. He just lost his leverage. The judge called a recess. No ruling yet. Just the sound of scales beginning to shift. Outside the courtroom, Evelyn refused to meet my eyes as she stormed past, muttering into her phone. Gregory trailed behind her like a puppet with the strings snapped. The air tasted lighter, almost celebratory, but Diane wasn't done. She waited until we were back in the hallway, Noah joining us silently. This is no longer about defense. Diane said, calm as ever. It's about restitution. We countersue in 24 hours. When a lie lives too long, it starts to rot. And rot always smells. The sentence looped in my head like a mantra as I hit publish. On the second blog post, love doesn't come with invoices. Within minutes, comments started rolling in, some supportive, some confused, but most stunned. I didn't care about viral. I cared about visibility. A few hours later, Noah forwarded me a text from Madison. Check your inbox. You're going to want to see this. Attached were screenshots, hundreds of them. In one, Evelyn wrote to an old friend, Lauren thinks she's helping. What she's really doing is paying for peace. Another showed her bragging about tricking me into wiring money for Gregory's treatment. It's easier to ask forgiveness than permission, she wrote, followed by a winking emoji. I scrolled in disbelief. These weren't vague misunderstandings. They were blueprints, proof of manipulation disguised as motherhood. Madison added a note at the bottom. You weren't crazy. They were just careful. Diane and I spent the afternoon cataloging the evidence, cross-referencing timestamps with previous financial records. It all lined up too perfectly, almost criminally so. That evening, I got a message request from a woman named Carol Simmons. I remembered her vaguely. She used to sit behind us at church when I was a kid. Her message read, Lauren, I saw your post. Evelyn borrowed $4,000 from me 5 years ago. Told me Gregory was dying. He still jogs past my house every morning. I never got the money back. Just thought you should know. It wasn't the last message like that. 3 more followed, each with similar stories. Small amounts, urgent needs, religious guilt as currency. It's a pattern, Noah said, leaning back in Diane's office chair. They didn't just manipulate you. They built an ecosystem of guilt and dependence. The court of public opinion started to shift. A local parenting forum picked up the story. Someone tagged a true crime podcast. Then came the video. A blurry cell phone clip of Evelyn arguing outside a grocery store. Her voice unmistakable, her rage unfiltered. I raised her. I gave her everything. Now she wants to crucify me online like I'm some kind of monster. Someone in the background muttered, Maybe you are. By morning, the clip had over 40,000 views. Comments ranged from pity to outrage. Some called her unwell. Others called her dangerous. Meanwhile, Diane filed a motion to freeze Evelyn and Gregory's remaining assets. The judge granted it, citing substantial evidence of financial misrepresentation. Their accounts were locked, pending the outcome of my counterclaim. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt leveled. Like I'd stepped into a new atmosphere where breathing required effort. I was sipping cold tea in my apartment, staring at nothing when Noah texted, We got approval for the final testimony. It's time. I didn't respond right away. I just stared at the screen, heart thudding. When I finally did reply, my fingers moved without hesitation. Bring her in. They counted on silence, but silence has a way of growing teeth. The courtroom was different this morning. Heavier somehow. A pre-storm stillness that made every cough, every whisper echo louder than it should have. Evelyn and Gregory sat at their table looking composed but not calm. Evelyn had opted for a pearl brooch, like respectability could be pinned to a lapel. Gregory sat like always, slightly slouched, present in body, absent in soul. Diane stood as Judge Marsh called the next witness. "We'd like to call Martha Lewis," she said. Evelyn's jaw clenched so tightly you could practically hear enamel crack. Gregory looked like someone had just turned off the oxygen in the room. The side door opened. A woman in her late 60s stepped in. Her presence didn't announce itself, but it took up space anyway. Smart brown slacks, wireframe glasses, and the kind of expression that said she'd seen enough to be tired, but not enough to stop fighting. Martha Lewis took the stand. She adjusted the microphone once, then again, then looked directly at the judge. "I'm Evelyn Carter's sister," she said. "We haven't spoken in over 7 years." The silence that followed was thick. Even the stenographer paused. "I was a licensed tax consultant for 35 years. Retired now," she added. Diane approached. "Ms. Lewis, did you have any financial dealings with your sister or brother-in-law during that time?" "Yes," she replied. "Too many. I initially helped them with some minor audits, but over time I noticed a pattern. Multiple false claims of medical debt. Requests for loans from family members, always urgent, always undocumented." She turned slightly, eyes flicking toward Evelyn. "Evelyn asked me to help her create a hardship narrative for Lauren to justify taking money from her. I refused." "And what happened after you refused?" Diane asked. "I got a letter from a lawyer threatening to expose my own tax history. It was empty but intimidating. Then came the calls. Gregory said I was endangering the family legacy. Evelyn accused me of betrayal." The judge nodded slowly. "Please continue." "I distanced myself after that, but I kept records, emails, voicemails. I have an archived message where Evelyn says, and I quote, 'Lauren's good for another 10 grand if we push the right buttons.'" There were audible gasps in the courtroom. Gregory shifted in his seat. "And regarding the life insurance policy?" Diane asked. "I didn't see the full document," Martha said, "but I was asked to look into rates for policies that make sense if you need to pivot an estate quickly." That was in August, months before Evelyn told Lauren they were desperate. Diane stepped back. "No further questions at this time." The judge leaned in. "Do you have anything else you'd like to add, Ms. Lewis?" Martha cleared her throat. Her voice dropped into something softer, heavier. "They didn't just betray Lauren, they weaponized her kindness, turned it into a tool. And when it stopped being useful, they tried to turn it into a liability." Gregory put his head down. Evelyn's fists clenched. Judge Marsh turned toward the plaintiff's table. Cross-examination. But the attorney didn't move. There was nothing to ask. Then Evelyn stood up. No warning, no prompt. "She deserved it," she shouted. Every head in the room turned. Gregory froze mid-blink. "She was always ungrateful, always judging, always looking down on us like we were broken. You think she's a victim? She made us feel like burdens every damn day." The judge banged his gavel once. "Mrs. Carter, sit down." But Evelyn was beyond instruction. "We gave her everything, and she repaid us with accusations and public shame." Diane leaned over to me and whispered, "This is it. The collapse." I watched Evelyn unravel her mask, slipping further with every word. Gregory stayed seated, eyes wide, no longer protecting her or himself. By the time security escorted Evelyn out, the room had gone from courtroom to spectacle, from accusation to revelation. The myth was gone, and in its place stood truth. Even a collapsed house leaves ashes behind, and sometimes the ashes burn just as hot. Portland had begun its slow thaw from winter. Snowbanks dulled into slush, dripping along gutters and staining the sidewalks in gray memory. I sat by the window of my new apartment, smaller, cozier, and entirely mine. No family photos on the walls, no curated nostalgia, just silence and space. Diane slid a folder across the table. Her nails tapped gently, rhythmic and calm. Gregory's lawyer accepted the final settlement. Restitution will be paid in quarterly checks, no future claims. His record will stay clean if he stays quiet. I nodded. And Evelyn Diane's mouth flattened into a thin line. She refused everything. She's being charged separately insurance fraud, document falsification, perjury. The DA's moving fast. I expect they'll go public with it next week. She paused. You've won the case. But now comes the harder part, what you do with your peace. I looked at my hands. They weren't shaking anymore. They didn't curl into fists or clutch coffee mugs like lifelines. I wasn't bracing for a hit that never came. Peace didn't feel like a parade. It felt like stillness. Madison showed up an hour later dragging 2 duffel bags and 3 plastic totes. Her eyes were red, but not from crying, from exhaustion. I brought frozen pizza, she said, placing a bag on the counter. I didn't think your fridge had emotions yet. We didn't talk much that night. We sat on the floor eating straight from the box, watching some bad reality TV show that neither of us followed. But when I leaned my head on her shoulder, she let it stay there. This doesn't fix what I didn't say, she murmured once. I know, I said. But saying it now matters. That Sunday I went back. Not for closure. Closure is a myth we sell to survivors, but for understanding. The house was foreclosed 2 weeks earlier. Boarded windows and overgrown yard, a foreclosure notice flapping on the door like a last gasp. I parked across the street and just stared. This was the house I paid for. The mortgage I saved from the brink. The kitchen I unknowingly remodeled while they claimed to be drowning. And now it sat hollow, like the lies they told within it. I crossed the street, boots crunching on the salted sidewalk. I didn't go in. I didn't need to. I stood at the base of the porch, arms crossed against the cold, and whispered to the rotting wood and peeling paint. You took everything but me, and I was the only thing you could never keep. It didn't echo. It didn't need to. Back home, I lit a candle, not for mourning, but for memory. Not all of them were bad. Some were mine, ones they hadn't tainted. Dancing with Madison in the hallway after her college acceptance letter. Learning how to rewire a lamp with Dad before the manipulation started. Mom kissing my scraped knees back when love didn't come with an invoice. The candle flickered soft and warm. My phone buzzed once. 1. New voicemail, Evelyn Carter. I stared at it. The screen lit up like a dare. I pressed play. Her voice spilled out sharp and weary, as if trying too hard to sound composed. Maybe you'll understand when you're a mother. I hit delete before she finished the sentence. Not out of rage, just certainty. Some ashes aren't worth keeping. They wrote the first chapters of my life in ink I wasn't allowed to touch. Now I own the pen. The office smelled like new paint and strong coffee, the scent of beginnings. Not flashy. Nothing was gold-plated or framed in marble. Just clean desks, warm lighting, and a corkboard still waiting for its first pin. The Boundary Project. That's what we'd called it. A nonprofit startup focused on educating survivors of financial abuse, especially those who'd been manipulated by their own blood. Madison helped with the design work between classes. Noah came by weekly, always in a crisp button-down, always with a manila folder under one arm. Today he placed one on my desk. A simple label, Final Report. I flipped it open. At the top, all remaining Carter assets seized. Evelyn Carter indicted. Pre-trial hearing set for June. I closed it without smiling. It wasn't joy I felt, it was calibration, a quiet balancing of the scales. They had taken years from me. Dignity. Security. Love, or what I thought was love. I couldn't undo it. But I could use it. I opened my laptop and began typing. This isn't revenge, it's repair. That was the first line of my last blog post. It went up an hour later, and within minutes the comments began to roll in. Survivors, strangers, anonymous names with stories that echoed mine in subtle, devastating ways. It didn't matter if it was a mother, a brother, a husband, a friend. The patterns were the same, the playbook recycled. Later that week, I gave my first talk at a local university. The auditorium wasn't packed, but the seats that were filled, they leaned in. I spoke about what it means to be gaslit by people who send you birthday cards. How financial abuse doesn't always come with bruises, but the healing is just as long. How silence is never neutral, it always protects someone. I didn't read from notes, I didn't cry, and I didn't ask for pity. I used to think justice meant watching them suffer, I said near the end. But now I know sometimes the best justice is just walking away while they watch. Applause rose slow, then steady. Afterwards, people lingered in the aisles, waiting for a chance to speak. I shook hands. I hugged a few. I took a breath, ready to leave. Then a girl approached, couldn't have been more than 20. Hair in a tight bun, sweat on her palms when we shook. Her voice trembled, but her eyes didn't. "Can I tell you my story?" I nodded, stepping to the side. She began to speak, and I listened. Because it was time. Because I remembered what it felt like to have no one believe you. Because healing has an echo, and I was finally ready to make mine ring. Every single view means a meal for someone in need. Just by watching this video, you're giving warmth, hope, and a full plate to those less fortunate. So watch now, share now, subscribe to the channel, and let's spread love together.